24 Driving Business.
Exactly 7 minutes past 8. You're still watching Smart Man's Business with Andrew Barigi and Masika Time, and we are joined with Joram Paulsonko here as we shall be having discussions. But of course, don't forget, before we get into any other discussion, the Markets on the Zabo platform, which open every Monday up to Friday from 8:15 a.m. till 3:15 p.m. Yes. Now, for you to be a part of this, you could be wondering, what should I do? Simply dial *9 and you'll be available with quite a lot of options where you can choose to buy government bonds and securities for as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings. Now, the markets open Monday up to Friday, except on the weekends and the public holidays. Now, like today being a public holiday, the markets are inaccessible, so you will be able to access them starting next Monday. Yes, until Friday, you will be trading, making money. Now, Zab made this a reality. There is no paperwork involved. Any part of the country you're located at, you can buy government bond securities, something which has been made a reality. Now, Zab simply says, my money, my future, and the Altex East Africa says, do something new. Well, right about now, let's get into our business tips and quotes. Yes, Squeeters, that last quote was quite very powerful, and I hope it really makes sense for you there. Well, right about now, we're getting into our discussion, of course, relating it to the State of the Nation's address, on the President's speech, where he spoke on so many aspects, very, very many. And today we are zeroing it down to agriculture. Last week, on Wednesday this week, we looked at the aspect of agro-industrialization. But today we want to examine the factor of agriculture in economic transformation. In other words, the potential of agriculture to transfer and what needs really to be done. Well, right about now, we're doing with Joram on this panel. And we're going to be having further insights regarding this. Good morning, Joram. How are you this morning?
Well, good morning. Friday. The vote is simply a public holiday.
It's a public holiday.
When you go through Kampala today, Ugandans do rest a lot. I think it's only for the people in the informal sector who normally work on such days. But for the corporate world, unless one is working for, let's say, if one is an essential worker, let's say media, or someone is in the medical fraternity, and maybe those are the only few that will definitely work on such days.
Very true.
To realize some other offices, the corporate offices, public spaces are already closed. But besides that, it's a down morning, I should actually say.
Yeah.
And when you mention down, characterized with the kind of atmosphere that is around. But anyways, at times you get to realize it's us who have to always have that mentality of lighting the mornings look so better. For all the other people. But of course, when you come to think of it, yeah, we are good to go if you to ask me. But so far, things are. And as an economy, with the fact that we are waiting for the national cake to be presented to us next week. So that is where our anticipation is at the moment. And I think when you come to think of it in regards to the agriculture sector, even when the president was speaking to the nation, he's currently on a medical leave, I should say, if I'm to look for a better word, simply because he tested positive for COVID-19. But there are quite a number of highlights he mentioned in regards to what the government intends to do in the next financial year in regards to agriculture and as well as other sectors. But of course, as today we're looking at the agriculture sector, you get to realize that at least it is more when it comes to what we expect from the government in regards to supporting the entire sector for all the stakeholders to benefit fully.
Yeah, actually, I remember when the president was speaking, he mentioned when he was, after concluding with the speech of what was given to him in terms of accountability for the year 2022, coming down to his speech, he mentioned the 4 years for economic growth and development, which are going to be fully actually followed come the next financial year 2023-2024. And one of them included the PDM and the NEOGA. But then the second one was adding value, a value on raw materials, something which I said, and he even gave us examples and the possibilities of what extent it can really contribute to the country's economy. Now, talking about agriculture in terms of value addition, you realize that most cases, as our country, Uganda, when we export, we export the raw materials, and what we get from that is very small, I mean per kilogram, if you to weigh it from that perspective of a kilogram. And yet the people that get these raw materials, the very raw materials that we supply and make the finished, sell back that coffee to the different countries as inclusive at a certain price. Yet the bigger picture in here is that the origin of whatever product is being sold originated from the country Uganda. Now, from this perspective, that means it's going to be calling for research. And you remember, I think in 2022, last year, Uganda and Vietnam were, actually President Museveni went to Vietnam, and the aspects, some of the discussions were regarding to research in agriculture. Because if you set a trend as government for such terms, for agroeconomic transformation, that means it's going to call for a certain degree of research. And of course, still part of the 40 years of economic development still further included the aspect of building an economy, a knowledge-based economy, but incorporating the aspect of research. Yes, research. And we can't talk about research and we don't expand it from the perspective of agriculture. And definitely we shall be expecting to see quite a lot of hubs, sort of incubation for farmers, and one of the ways they can really improve the product that is being planted. But also, away from just value addition and all that, it's very also important for people to know how best can we grow the best of the quality from the origin. Like what I mean is that if, for example, if we say that we're exporting pineapples, we're exporting something that is of quality from the garden straight away. All that is involving in research as a result of that. Well, I remember during the Vietnam visit, President Museveni called the government of Vietnam to cooperate with Uganda in research and value addition in order for the two countries to reap big from agriculture, a sector benefiting billions of people in food security and income generation. And he also noted that previously countries, especially in Africa, produce raw materials for others to benefit. And this is exactly what he mentioned when he was addressing the nation. We are not earning from our hard work, the sweat. Look at those people, working so hard only to sell something at a very, very, very cheap price. And when it's being sold out there, the people that buy it modify it much more better, and they sell it out to other world markets, and they make much more money. So where are we in this picture? That's the absolute question. Well, I guess now let's get into this discussion. We shall be returning to wrap this up.
Above, in this speech, I've said that our economy will be of the GDP size of US dollars 55.2 billion by the end of the financial year 2023-2024. This is assuming a rate of growth of 6% per annum. This is all while our economy is still largely raw material based. This is the problem I have with finance. And all those wonderful people, agriculture, what? All these plans, 6% rate of growth, this one, they are all assuming we remain a raw materials producing country, which I don't accept. This is assuming a rate of growth of 6% per annum. This is all while our economy is still largely raw materials based. Coffee is a good example. 99% of our coffee is exported as unprocessed coffee, a raw material for cleverer people. For we who don't see far, we sell our raw material to cleverer people to earn big money out of our sweat. With the unprocessed coffee, we get US dollars 2.5 per kilogram. If the same coffee is processed, a kilogram will give us US dollars 40, increasing in value by a factor of 15. If this logic of value addition is extended across the entire spectrum of our raw materials, our economy will expand by at least a factor of 10. It will expand from US dollars 55 billion to US dollars 550 billion in the short term. Why do I say this? It is because apart from the said raw materials that are already in place, all the other factors are there. These are an educated workforce, electricity, a better road network, the railway we are about to start building, and the old line we are repairing, piped water, telephone lines, the internet, etc.
Yes, that's agroeconomic transformation and the ability that agriculture has when it comes to building the nation's economy. But of course, like I was saying before we get into this discussion, it rallied mainly on the aspect of research, research in agriculture following the president's visit to Vietnam. And we believe lots of ideas were obtained from that perspective, and it's going to be explored into the country Uganda. But of course, the albert question is there, are we ready as a country for such a move? I don't know what your thoughts are, Joram, on this matter. Are we ready for to adapt this aspect of research in agriculture, and we are willing to put in the work that is needed to really get there and we start earning big from this money? Because I believe that's when we shall eradicate poverty truly.
Well, I think the part of research is to enable the farmers themselves understand the market space and at least broaden, their view of the international market, especially when it comes to the level of exports, the quality, and of course, trying to break through the various markets. Why? Because you see, the markets that we are having in the country, in the world, are quite competitive, especially when it comes to the agricultural sector. We are competing with countries that are adding a lot of value to their products, and the research part of it is very fundamental. Why? Because you have to, do your research well, do your homework, and as well, it's not even more than research, but it's understanding the kind of crops you are dealing with, or the kind of agriculture produce you're into. If, for example, you're in dairy, what is in that particular field? that you ought to know. If you are, let's say, in goat keeping, you really need to understand the business of goat keeping, because in the aspect of commercialization of the agricultural sector, you get to realize in some of the footage there, you've come to realize that there is a lot of value addition going on in the past 10 years in the country. Coffee, cotton, which is minimal for cotton if you come to think of it. But of course, the government has always been pushing for these particular trainings and all that. Why? Because this is to encourage the farmers to understand and move at the same pace with the global trends in regards to the kind of agro processing or agricultural practices out there, because the world that we are living in is actually moving into the technology world, which ideally means if we are moving in such a kind of situation, we will have to at least be able to compete with what we know and be able to at least sync with the available trends, because every other day why we do research is understanding the new trends, especially when it comes to agriculture practice. Now countries like Netherlands are way above us in regards to the kind of technology being used. Germany, look at China. Some of these countries are not besides the Netherlands, of course, when you come to think of China, they are not so much known as an agri country, but when it comes to their manufacturing sector, it has played a pivotal role in boosting the other sectors elsewhere. So research goes into studies in regards to when it comes to the crops that you're dealing with, when it comes to, for example, medication in those who are actually in the animal husbandry units. So there is a lot really. There's a lot that you can look at and see why the research is important. But at the top of it all, it has to come at the expense of government inputting a lot of money in this particular one. Also something to do with the storage facilities that really need to be worked upon. Because you see, one of the key issues that is affecting the agriculture sector is the storage facilities. The facilities where we store the already harvested agricultural produce is one of those that has affected us so much. For example, when it comes to maize, when it comes to coffee, the storage facilities are something that we need to ponder on. Even those who actually, the people who actually deal in maize flour, after it is done, after the packaging is done, where do you store it? If you're not a bigger company like the others or the grain millers per se. Okay. So there's a lot to do in the agricultural sector in order to consider it as an agroeconomic transformation for the country, because as we speak about the economical transformation, you're speaking about the commercial aspect. You're speaking about alleviating poverty through alleviating poverty in households, but using the agricultural sector. And then also, when you look at the farm, look at such markets, those are some of the markets that need to be, renovated, or they really need to be up to standard, because you can't have that for a market when you want someone to actually buy a product. So regardless of how accessible it is to the various farms or the various gardens, you wish the research needs to be done. Now, for example, what you're seeing on screen in there clearly shows you that that is a trained extension worker, if I'm to say, or a trained farmer. A trained farmer. Those are all the aspects that are attached to research and understanding what is coming in the agriculture sector, because you have to do all your book work so well in order to at least comfortably say you're practicing commercial agriculture, because commercial agriculture is quite different from subsistence. Subsistence agriculture can easily be done by anyone, but commercial agriculture, you really need to learn the basics from the word go, because you're practicing anything. It's just like business practice.
Very interesting in there. And maybe just a little on that, still, to add on your point, the innovation space, technology, has also had a certain impact to that. Because you see, commercial agriculture itself is expensive, it needs money. If you're saying that you will be able to, because of course the government is going to give you a certain hand, but its major hand is going to mainly probably rely on to securing markets for you and giving you the knowledge for you to acquire the markets. But also, the innovation space, the the technology, talking about the applications that are being involved. For example, there is the AgroShare, all that, which are helping the farmers in terms of accessing, linking the value chain much more easily, whereby the farmers can access the right people to buy their commodities. And once they are linked to the right people and they are not exploited, they are going to be in a position to make more money, which they can invest back in agriculture for commercial purposes. Remember, if you're going commercial, be ready to stretch your investment muscle. That means you need money, and that way, technology can help you to actually lobby that money. Very perfect. Well, 27 minutes past 8, watching Smart Men's Business. I'm Andrew Barigi with Masika Time and Joram Paul Sonko driving your business this morning. But definitely, before we get into the break, don't forget Zabu, a platform from Maltex, will just make your trading experience much more easy and very friendly. Now, all you need to do is there star 292 hash. Yes, and you'll be availed with a number of options where you will be availed with options of buying government bonds and securities for just as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings. Now, the markets open Monday up to Friday, 8:15 a.m. till 3:15 p.m., except on the weekends and the public holidays when you can access these markets. Yes, they're out of bounds, but at least you have the rest of the 5 days of the week to capitalize and make yourself quite a huge profit, something which I believe is very remarkable when it comes to personal growth and development for you as an individual. Now, Zab made this a reality, no paperwork involved. Zabu says, my money, my future, and Alltech East Africa says, do something new. Well, now let's get into the break. Of course, we shall be returning as we take a look at what's happening into the entertainment business and sports.
Smart 24, driving business.